Good day. I'm Ezra Joseph Loyosa Mendoza, an MIS student from University of the Philippines Open University. Hi, welcome to Tech Talk. In today's video, we will be talking about how does social media affect or reflect the basic way in which we understand ourselves and others. One question seems to resurface again and again, and that is whether the development of Web 2.0 is changing us in some way, or whether it is simply a technological development in which the same old psychological traits express themselves differently. There are a variety of psychological concepts that we can examine with regards to their relationship to social media. But in this video, I will be concentrate on two, the ego and the self. Before defining this term, it is important to have a quick look at why we are asking these questions in the first place. Social media has penetrated into the social and interpersonal lives our connected up society rapidly and continues to grow. Facebook alone report that it has more than 8 million active users. Unconfirmed reports across Twitter inform that it has a fast approaching 1 billion. According to the website of Internet World Stats, internet use is just over 2 billion, just over 30% of the population, which means that for those in the world who are accessing the internet, those using Facebook alone is approaching half of all internet users. There must be something very compelling about social networking to achieve such rapid growth and population penetration. Psychology has long been interested in what motivates people. The idea is that if we can understand primary human motivation, we can better understand the choices that we make. The concept of what lay behind human motivation has changed a great deal over time. The phrase social networking itself contains the basic elements of relating and technology. The technology is the network, and the social is the human beat. We use technology to do human things, to relate. So, what do ego and self have to do with it? If we understand this term with psychological precision, we will see that they are related, but different concepts. The world self is the wider concept and is inclusive of everything that comes together to create self, conscious and unconscious, body and mind, cognition, feelings, wishes, and dreams. The ego is more discrete. It is part of us that identify us as I or me. It is the most conscious aspect of the self, our conscious identity, how we understand ourselves. It is also the part of us that defend us from slight and hurts. It is what used to be called homunculus, like the little person who sits in our heads and peers out of our eyes to experience the world. The part of me that feels like me. The ego is a small part of much larger self. Though it frequently likes to think it is more than that it is like to maintain belief about itself, either positive or negative ones, usually somewhat distorted ones. Freud's conception of the ego continues to be valid one. Its main job is to negotiate between the internal unconscious and the external world. It's tried to keep us safe, but not always the most productive ways. What then is the connection between this psychological concept and social media? My own side on this matter continue to develop, but I am coming to believe that social media comes to the service of the ego and the ego interacts the social networks as extensions of the ways in which our individual egos negotiate the world in any case. The ego like to maintain familiar patterns, and that's not always in the service of the self. The self seek recognitions from others, full honest, authentic, and non-judging recognition. The ego, however, likes its recognition to be conditional upon its own expectation and desire. If we think of the ego as an estate agent, the three most important needs are recognition, recognition, recognition. When we think about social networking, we can see how well it is created in the service of recognition. Here are the few examples of ego recognitions by social networks. Facebook, number of friends, number of comments on posts, number of like received on a post or status update, inclusion onto list, group, events, etc. Twitter, number of followers, number of mentions, numbers of retweet, inclusion onto list. This example are really just the beginning, but it is easy to see just what a causative fit there is between the need for ego recognition and the way which social media can meet or deny it. Transactional analysis has a wonderful term. It's uses for moments of ego recognition. They are called stroke. Every time your ego receives recognition, it purrs just a little, as if it is being stroked. The ego needs stroke to keep it going, and when it doesn't get the stroke it needs, it can feel pretty bad. While stroke feel good, they can be troubled because stroke can only give very limited recognition. Young children work out very early how to get stroke from their parents. Or to be more precise, they're developing egos. Learn this. The ego, in this desire of recognition, uses this knowledge to get more stroke from their parents, often developing what is called false self. White might call be true or authentic self, it is danger of being left unrecognized. In 1986, psychoanalyst Donald Winnicott devised this term false self to describe what the young ego creates to cope with the world, a defense designed to protect the true self. Interestingly, he goes to say this long before the development of social network. Society is easily taken in by the false self-organization and has to pay heavily for this. The false self, though a successful defense, is not an aspect of health. Each person has a polite or socialized self and also a personal private self that is not available except in intimacy. This is what commonly found and we could call it normal. To be clear, the argument I am making here supports one side of question. That is, in this case at least, social networking appears to be operating on the same line as anything else, simply another arena in which the ego can acquire recognition, falsely or authentically, in the same fashion that is given individual's ego would work anyways in the absence of Web 2.0. However, I would take it one step further. The two-dimensional ways in which the ego can measure itself on the number of likes, comments, followers, etc. is one of the sort of object abuse. That is the nature of social network. In many ways, aids and habits of superficial ways of judging both others and the self. I would take this one step further. The identities of Paul Spray and Gazer are referring to, I would make a bit more precise and call them egos. The online and offline egos are version of something greater. They are aspect of larger self. The fundamental question that I will be returning is whether this version of self, which I am calling ego, inhibits or enhance.